What is going on, guys? Welcome into the Credo Crypto podcast. I am half of your co-hosts, Boi Crypto. I have here with me, as always, Crypto Ewok on the other side of the screen. We're going to welcome him in here in a moment, and we have got an action-packed show for you tonight. As you can see in the thumbnail, we are discussing, and when I made the thumbnail earlier today, we weren't at new lows for PulseChain, but now we kind of are, or at least on par, basically, for the PulseChain ecosystem. We are going to talk about that tonight. How big of an opportunity is it, and what are we doing right now? You can answer that question in the chat as well. We have that question up there as always. We have a lot to get to in macro markets, SEC fun, and I actually mean fun this time, because usually when we talk non-pulse chain or non-DeFi stuff, it's just kind of cleaning up, the dirty work we don't really want to talk about. But we have some juicy stuff. We had FOMC today. We had CPI this week. There is a lot to get into. So if you are here right now, right before the show even starts, just take a leap of faith. I think you're going to like the show. So hit the like button, subscribe to the Creative Crypto channel. We very much appreciate it. Ewok, I welcome you in. We've got a lot happening today. We got red candles. We got a pause, a pivot maybe from the Fed. How are you feeling about everything?
Hey, it is what it is. Bear market.
Yeah.
Right? Well, yep. we said the bear market was over, but it's not always over until it's really over. And as you can see, there's still some capitulation happening, and a lot of uncertainty in the markets, I should say, and it's going to continue like this. Part of the choppiness that we've talked about for several episodes now, until probably late this year. September, October, November, we might start to see a little more positive sentiment by then, I think. But until then, it's gonna really test your patience. It's gonna test your fortitude and how serious you are about really making money in your future.
It absolutely is. I mean, I can tell you it's been doing it to me a little bit this week. I think none of us are really immune to that. I mean, there's just going to be days where you do feel like that. And, we both are in agreement that we're in a new 4-year cycle now, and we've defined that as technically being a bull market, even though we're certainly not in bullish times right now. But I think you're right, Ewok. We are still in... Clearly, I mean, we're not in a zone where things are just taking off at this point. I mean, we're at a point now in mid-June here of 2023 where PulseChain has now launched. We're over a month into it at this point. Who would have thought we'd have all this infighting between a bunch of knuckleheads in the HEX community regarding which HEX is better? We've had... You're right. We're still seeing capitulations. We're seeing Sami's been doing all the videos on pink hair Silvertooth, who dyed his hair pink now, and I'm not going to make fun of him or anything, but he's certainly capitulated multiple times. He's posting pictures of his falling apart trailer and stuff like that. We've got a lot of interesting stuff going on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I understand why people are still having a bad time. I mean, you think by now, we got some positive action. And then, we've talked about it, that one step forward, 2 steps back. So, you've experienced this in previous cycles, Ewok. And I mean, now the funny thing is now, though, the volatility, as we know, with Bitcoin and herein and some of these other assets in this market is going to go down over time, which is actually a deterrent. I mean, that you're not going to have the gains that you once were. So, talk about some of your past experiences. Let's go back to 2016, 2017, when, we had Bitcoin at 20K in December of, that would have been 2017. And then, things just evening out. I mean, it felt like the entire market was dead over and over again over the next couple of years, right?
Yeah, for sure. So I got in March or April-ish of 2017. So that was the early stages of the bull market. I mean, things had really started to just kind of take off, and it didn't do or have too many corrections until December, whenever it was, over, and it just dumped hard. So from early 2018 all the way to the end of 2019, which is when HEX released, it was pretty bad. There was a lot of people just left, so the bonus that we have is a lot of people are sticking around. We're just seeing how it's affecting them. Or maybe, I wasn't on Twitter very much then, or into crypto Twitter. I'm sure it was around.
Yeah.
But I wasn't experiencing that. So I'm more comfortable, I should say, now, because I did ride one out. I know what it's like. It's a long 2 years, really, from the January of 2018 all the way up until Hex launched on December 3rd, until I had something positive to look forward to. So, that's a year and 11 months. Now, we've been at this here since what, October 20, so it's going to be that long again. It's literally almost 2 years of just bad
Yeah.
to go down, and then it starts to come back up. So, you know, you don't ever get used to it. You don't want to get used to losing, your value of your wallets. It is still hard, but just knowing and experiencing it makes you deal with it a little bit better, I guess. Yeah, it does.
Mhm.
Again, it's not pleasant for anybody.
Well, yeah, and I think I think the people that are used to it and are getting more used to it are seen as basically psychos when it comes to
Yeah.
your real life people. Like we all talk about us all being, and I'm sure all the viewers, you, I, most of the people we know that are in crypto in IRL in your real life, you are like the crypto guy,
Mhm.
and you're looked at as some kind of a cult member psycho, and that's good, really, because that means that you're early enough that there's not really much adoption yet. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it does take a special breed to do this. And
Yeah.
yeah, happy to be doing this with you. Happy that everybody's here watching with us tonight
Yeah.
and
Likewise.
discussing this. But yeah, we're in the muck of it. I mean, we are still there. Just some reminders of that every now and then, and looking at some of the prices right now. So we got BTC, healthy, normal dip kind of today after the it's funny. Everybody, the pause from the Fed was kind of priced in. That's what people were starting to expect going into it today. You and I were actually saying we thought there would be one more hike for now. We're going to get into what direction they're going to be going in that way. But BTC is just over 25K right now. 25.5K has been like a huge level of support, and it absolutely refused to go through that 25.5 number last week when it dipped down. It did a little bit today. Actually did below 25 briefly. ETH really fell a bit today. It's at 1650 right now.
Yep.
Looking at the PulseChain ecosystem again, we're right at those lows that we had about a week ago, basically. So PulseChain itself is at about 21% below the SAC rate. PulseX about 70% below the SAC rate. We've got one hex on the Pulse side at just about 1 penny, and eHEX is right at about 6.5 of a penny. So that's where we're at with all those assets right now. And yeah, that's the site I was just looking at. Check that resource out if you guys aren't there. It's pulsexprices.com. But yeah, so that's where we are today. We've got dippage in the markets, and that's why we have our poll question in there that we've done the last few weeks. This is what we're seeing right now. Where are you? Are you buying? Are you holding? Are you selling? And to kind of, we're going to get into the bigger stuff here, but to just like look at that question right now, I mean, it would be obvious to say you want to buy right here, like the red candles. As long as you believe in the asset, you're going to double down and buy. But we're getting to a point where, and I've heard a lot of people say this. You were just saying it yourself, Ewok. I mean, we have been at down only kind of macro wise now since November of 2021, basically. Now there's been like different scenarios of that. We're certainly up off of 1 year ago today. I mean, we had the capitulation to 17K a year ago and then 15K in November of last year. But some people are just out of money. I mean, there's some people that want to invest in this market are just like, oh my God, I've DCA'd all the way down. I even upped it. Maybe they're even being responsible. They didn't just put in some huge lump sum. They've really been cautiously DCAing in the whole way down here. And then if they are in Hex and in PulseChain, they experience that kind of stock split. And those prices obviously have gone down since launch. So there's a lot of people down. There's a lot of people that are just like, I just got a hodl right now. So talk about that mindset real quick too. Like if you don't have tons to put into the market right now, you could say that person maybe made a mistake by doing it. And they'll have to build up some cash, but talk about the mentality of just being like, I'm just going to have to grin and bear these charts right now.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard. It's definitely hard if you've DCA'd the whole way down and then it dips even further and you don't have anything left, man. It's a tough situation to put yourself in. But it's again, it goes back to how bad do you want it? There's always ways out there to make more money. Get a second job if you really want. Start some sort of business or something. I mean, obviously it takes
I'm a
money to
life
start it.
coach, whatever it may
Yeah,
be.
but I know it takes money to start a business, and if you don't have any dry powder for crypto, you most likely don't have money to start a business. But the best thing you can do is take on some hours, get a second job, and put all of that money into crypto. Now's the time. Now's the time to be doing it. And I know it sucks, and I know it's hard. But it's the no risk, no reward type thing, especially right now. As the prices are approaching these bottoms that we're seeing, and it does suck. I was able to move some more money over, a couple days ago, and it's not a whole lot, but it's I want to buy at these prices. I was buying very large sums at about 8 cents when Hex was at 8 cents. So all of that money is even down, and that was on the way up. I didn't buy a whole lot as it rose. I tried to buy some as it came down, but the majority of the money that I put in was around 8 cents because I had some major money clear at that point that I had access to. So yeah, it's tough, but you got to do what you got to do. You have the videos of the minimalist lifestyle things. There's always hacks you can do to save money if you really want, and are determined to do it. There are ways to save money and to put a little bit extra in each paycheck or whatever it may be.
Yeah, you got to make those life adjustments. And, I shout out to, I forget who it was on Twitter the other day. I saw say this, might have been that Optimus Kevtron dude. I'm not sure, but some hex person. I think they hit the nail on the head, basically. Like, you have to be comfortable with adjusting your lifestyle if you're going to be in this market, and that doesn't mean you shouldn't live with the extremes of what the market does. No people, you shouldn't hastily retire or quit your job or something like that at the top of the bull market, just like you need to know what you need do. You need to know what you're doing when these prices are low. And that means, I've talked about literally on this channel before about like the rice and bean diet or whatever else. I mean, like there's ways you can eat for super cheap. There's all kinds of things that you can do in the meantime. And I understand some people don't want to hear that. They don't want to lower themselves to those standards, but make fun of Dave Ramsey as much as we may. One of my favorite quotes from him is he would always say, live like nobody else now to be able to live like nobody else later. And I think that is very applicable of the things that he says. So that's where we're at right now. You want to be putting money into this market, but looking at these major events this week. So we had CPI, the inflation numbers come in the other day. They actually came in right at 4%. Who knows how, tampered with that number is or what that really does mean, but came in at 4%, which either way was lower than what people expected by a little wee bit. So we got a small market pump off of that. Then that kind of led into, more importantly, the news we had today where the Fed and Jerome Powell met again, the FOMC meeting, and they did pause rate hikes for now, as people were expecting. Now, you and I, like I said, Ewok, we're thinking that they would do one more rate hike right now, but we kind of discovered this. People were saying this leading up, and then we heard it from Jerome Powell today. So essentially, the decision to pause today was a unanimous vote by the Fed. Powell did say, though, that they are likely to continue hiking through the end of the year, or by, I should say, the end of the year, to continue in some capacity. So you floated this my way the other day, and it made more sense as we both kind of got to thinking about it. And it's kind of what Powell said today is like pausing right now, gathering more data, seeing where we are, and not ruling out going back to, I don't know how many hikes. I know, he doesn't like to get way too ahead of himself with saying things like that and promising things, but either way, they paused them for now. I don't know if we should call this a pivot, but either way, they have in fact pivoted at this meeting from raising rates today. Anyway, so
I wouldn't call it a pivot. I would just call it exactly what you said. It's a pause. They paused raising them, but a pivot would be actually lowering, and that's not going to happen, according to them, for a while, at least until the end of this year.
Yeah.
As they gather more data, see how what they've done, how it actually does play out, if at all. The markets are still strong. Overall, the job markets are strong. Unemployment did rise a little bit, which was part of their goal as to get the inflation rates down. They need to see the unemployment rates kind of go up at the same time. So, I think they're just kind of letting it see where it lands. And I still think we get another rate hike on the next July one, really, my opinion.
Yeah, that'll be July 31st, and they're definitely going to take the temperature of things, see where we are. I could see that happening. But either way, I mean, we already kind of knew that they were starting to take their foot off the gas. This is another signal of it. Powell did say he was asked in terms of actual rate cuts, which would be more than a pivot. That would be, hey, we're really going the other way now. Speculating that may still be 2 years away or whatever. Maybe they raise a little bit more by the end of 2023, take a year off really doing anything in 2024, and then we start to see the real pivot with the cuts. But we'll see how that goes. That's obviously pretty far out. The media kept asking why they're pausing it all, and Powell, kind of like you just said, Ewok, to just observe and see where they're going to go. So it's funny. We were talking about this before we went on the air, but the kind of market manipulation and these quick whipsaw moves that we see on these events are always hard to play. And not that you should be playing them, but hard to kind of, I guess, handicap where you think the market's going to go in short term. So we see a little bit of a pump heading into CPI. Then we see a dump coming out of FOMC, even though this is what people were thinking would happen. I don't think that this is necessarily the ultimate move. I actually could maybe see the market start to rally a bit going into the end of this week and go back to where we had already been to start the week. Because we've just seen too many of these. We've seen everything where it's not what they expect. It is what they expect, but the market doesn't do what you think it's going to do. It's all really just short-term noise anyway.
It is. Yeah. It is. And it doesn't have a whole lot of effect on on people's emotions. We'll get into this later, but I had a kind of a speculation, but about once we talk about the SEC stuff, we'll go there.
We're going to get into that in just a second, but I mean that's where we're looking at with the macro stuff. It is becoming a better picture anyway. I mean, we could see the CPI numbers down to by the end of the year, we'll probably actually see them to where the inflation goals actually are around 2%. So. Who knows? I mean, we'll see where that goes. But either way, things are getting better, despite how we started off the show and how shitty things can feel from day to day, especially being as down as some people are in this market. Yeah. Things are gradually, the ship is slowly turning. So just keep that in mind. Now, heading on to some more fun stuff. So we do have some SEC stuff we have to talk about. And this is going to get entertaining. We're going to talk about #Fire Gary Gensler and a lot more. But if you guys are here and enjoying the stream, hit the like. We very much appreciate it. Subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you all for being here. So we had some developments first off come out with this Ripple XRP and SEC case that's now, I think, nearing 3 years since it's been going on. So the other day, how this kind of started is an old SEC internal email, an email that was back and forth between the SEC, has come to light. The judge in the case basically has outed this email that the SEC vehemently was asking to not come out. They did not want it to come out, which should tell you something. The former chair, this is before Gary Gensler, but the former chair basically said that Bitcoin, Ethereum, even named some other tokens as well, could easily basically start out as securities, but ultimately be considered commodities based on how the market views them. And even more telling, I mean, not even just telling, I mean, deliberately a statement, they admitted to deliberately making speeches about the topic that try to confuse everyone and give less detail. And what I mean is in terms of how they are considering these assets as commodities or securities. Well, no shit. I mean, we've all seen that pretty much every day and every single time that Gary Gensler now speaks about it. But yeah, right. I mean, now we have proof in these emails that the judge just did release is, I mean, they have admitted to purposely, I don't want to say leading people astray, but purposely not leading anybody anywhere to create that confusion.
Just muddying the water.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. So, I mean, that's kind of what again, we're seeing it in plain sight. These are a couple years old emails prior to Gary Gensler, who obviously shares this same message. But what could an XRP case win mean for, I'm not really concerned about Ripple. I know you're not either, but mean overall for crypto and some of this legislation and regulation over the next few years? Because we got more to talk about Gary Gensler and the SEC in a minute here, but I mean, nobody's taking this stuff seriously anymore. So what could an XRP win mean?
Well, it means a lot. It means a lot for the rest of crypto. It sets a precedent for things to come, especially because, in my opinion, Ripple kind of passes a lot of legs of the Howey test. It is a common enterprise. There is a centralized figure at the helm. There is an organization. So there's a lot of things where, obviously, in order to be deemed a commodity, you want to fail the Howey test.
Right.
Does it do all of these things? And, as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a Ripple fan, but I am a crypto fan. So obviously I want to see everybody do well. I'm not one of the ones that I don't hold it, so I hate it kind of things. I don't have that mentality. I know a lot of people do, but I am pulling for XRP Ripple to win this case only because of it. But like I said, if they're deeming that a commodity, then there's a lot of other things that are way more decentralized and DeFi projects that don't fall into a lot of those categories that Ripple does. And like I said, if they win the case, it sets a lot of precedent moving forward in case they do come at any other coin community, whatever it may be. So yeah, I'm pulling for them. Like we said, they're muddying the water on purpose. And I'm just going to kind of throw out my theory now while we're talking about this, because the Coinbase, the Binance, and we're going to throw FTX into this bunch too. And I think one of the reasons why Sam was working, now I haven't heard anybody talk about this, and it's kind of something I just kind of thought about. And one of the reasons why I think Sam was working so closely with them was I think the government has realized how illiquid that their markets really are, right? There's a lot of money out there. We are exchanging a lot of money that is just debt from other countries, but there's really not much liquidity. They're not giving loans anymore, so they've stopped the printing of money. But realizing people have pulled their money out of banks, a lot of banks. And now that they have other choices, know that they're going into crypto. I feel like their plan is almost to back these guys into a corner and kind of create crypto banks that the government regulates, that has liquidity, and possibly treat the system in that sense. So, it's just, like I said, just a theory. I haven't heard anybody talking about it, but it was just something I was thinking about the other day. Is why wouldn't they do that? Like, why wouldn't they push these people into a corner and then make them a deal and say, all right, listen, here's what we're going to do. You're going to operate under a bank in order to do this stuff. You're going to get banking license and all that stuff. And not to mention, FTX is supposed to relaunch at the end of this year.
Right.
All of this kind of plays into that. Now, I hope Brian Armstrong and CZ and these guys say, no, screw you. We're going to fight you on this. But I just kind of felt like that was possibly originally part of the plan. And I don't know. What do you think? Does it sound like something, that would work? And then in that same sense, it would help them launch their CBDC, right? If they had control of these crypto exchanges as crypto banks, they could easily launch their CBDCs that way. So, it was just something, like I said, totally speculation. And I was just kind of throwing weird things against the wall and wondering, and I hadn't even brought it up to you in private at all. So what do you think about that theory?
Well, clearly the SEC, clearly the SEC and all these entities do think that they know. I mean, you can see it written all over Gary Gensler's face. Like, this war is already lost. Like, this is just plain and simple, posturing until delaying the inevitable, basically. We've talked about it before, like banning the technology of the blockchain, or banning crypto, or not even banning, but regulating it overly strongly so people can't access it, or whatever it may be, just not providing that clarity. It's like banning wheels Or, we've talked about like the drug war before and things like that. If people are going to smoke weed, people are going to smoke weed. That's just going to be the way it is. And here we are with, perfectly legal weed to purchase wherever you want to in most states now. So, that's just what we're going to see here. I mean, it sucks. I mean, there's going to be government red tape, and, less government is typically better. But yeah, I mean, I could definitely see what you're saying. And that's the other thing we can't lose either is how do they get their piece of the pie as best they can out of this? How do they limit a transfer of wealth as best they can? And how do they retain some from this?
Yeah, because they definitely don't want to give up control or the ability to make something off of it. Now, obviously, if they're paying their taxes like you should. I'm not saying anything against doing that. But how do they still get a piece of the pie? I mean, and that was kind of what I came up with. And as far as the muddying the water, it just gives them another in. I think that they can get a piece of it and kind of eventually strong arm them into that situation. So.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I'm not going to call you a conspiracy theorist to try to discredit you over a perfectly valid theory there, I think. So, yeah, we're going to see. It's heating up. I mean, it's heating up, and now to the juicier part. And this is something that we have talked about on this very show for months since we first heard it. Talked about by Representative Warren Davidson out of Ohio, Republican, because if you support crypto, you just happen to be a Republican now. It just is the way it is, unfortunately, at the moment, because the other side won't get on board. But and not saying all Republicans are either by any stretch. But so Warren Davidson, representative from Ohio, as well as Mark, I always forget his name, Tom. Yeah, from Minnesota, who's actually the majority whip for the Republican Party right now, officially introduced what they called the SEC Stabilization Act to remove Gary Gensler. Essentially, I mean, it happens to be Gensler who is, the fall guy who's been, anemic for the last couple of years. But it's basically to just reshape the SEC or to not have a chair of the SEC and instead just have a committee, approach essentially. So we talked about this the other day. And again, we've talked about it on the show leading up to this. I said to you and you agreed, like, I'm glad they've at least finally introduced this wherever it does go in Congress, because I started to get afraid that maybe it was just Davidson doing lip service to the issue or something, and maybe it would just die and go away. Because that is the fear. I mean, like, again, I'm not cozying up with the Republicans either. I mean, like, sometimes you do wonder how serious are these guys actually taking it? Do they just want to win elections and stuff like that? Tom Emmer seems to have been beating this drum and frankly seems extremely knowledgeable. I mean, like, I've heard him talk about crypto a number of times, and he, for a guy who's a politician, definitely seems like he knows what he's talking about, as does Davidson, especially with them now pushing this act forward. So I don't think it's just pomp and circumstance. I think that they are serious about this, even though they're in the minority probably when it comes to Congress. So what do you think, Ewok? I mean, like, we can't really predict things as far as what goes on in government, and we know that they don't really get any work done and work very slowly to not get that work done. But what do you think ultimately happens with this? And I mean, I'm definitely happy they at least got it out there finally.
Yeah, and we'll see if it can get pushed through. I don't know how many votes they need to go through.
Yeah,
like I said, I'm not sure how that works out, but I love the idea. We've been talking about it for a while. There shouldn't be one central figure in charge of it. It's not, again, it's not an elected position. It's an appointed position. You cannot have one person, especially with the way Gensler's been. They won't provide any kind of clarity. And I think the guys are fed up with seeing that. It's making them look foolish. And that's one of the things that we can continue to do, is to show as many ways that Gensler's making them all look foolish. And the longer they keep him appointed to that position, it just looks terrible. It looks terrible for all of them. So, I really am in favor of a make the rules by committee kind of thing, so that, at least there's multiple points of input, and, not just one person making those decisions.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I mean, like, the biggest key word you said is unelected group of people. I mean, this is not an entity that anybody has chosen or anything like that. These are just random, not random, but people appointed to do this.
Right,
And
right.
the pathetic thing about Gensler is just all the old footage that we have of him explicitly saying stuff. I bookmarked, and I this is a sneak attack on you, Ewok, but I wanted to create a new segment this week called Broke Boys Bookmark Tweets, because I've been in the habit of doing this week. But I bookmarked this video of him speaking. I'm not sure where it was at, probably a university or something like that, because that's what he did. But Gary Gensler just explicitly saying that Bitcoin, ETH, and others are not securities.
Right.
Yeah.
Are you able to share your screen there? Or?
I don't think it's going to let me on the stream, but it's okay. But yeah, what I'll do, I'll just copy this and throw it in the chat. But I mean, he has said that before, so now there's actual video of it, and that's why, you know, we've seen it, talked about it a million times. But like, just when he was actually questioned by my God, I can't remember all these guys' names, Bowtie, a few weeks back.
Yeah. I forget his name too. It doesn't matter, but
yeah, I want to say Phil something, but anyway, yeah, I mean, he wouldn't answer the question at all. He would not say whether ETH. He just directly asked, and he was literally shaking, wouldn't answer the question.
Yeah.
So,
and I believe he was promoting, was it Arbitrum?
No. Older than that, Algorand.
Algorand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it was an A. And now that was one of the ones that was just listed, I believe, or
as a security. You're right.
Yeah,
or what
they
speculated would be one.
Speculated as a security. You know, so yeah, they're flip flopping. Just money in the water. It's not a good look for anybody. And like I said, the more we can do is one of the things that we can do is just show how terrible they're making the whole space look.
Yeah, it's really bad right now. Yeah, so he's pumped up Algorand in the past. Now they list it as one of the securities, and that's actually a perfect segue, because you know, we're doing this Wednesday night, so we're a few days after the news, and a lot has kind of happened since then. But we had an absolute crazy altcoin dump last Friday in the States anyway, Friday night going into Saturday morning. And it was primarily, I mean, it was really all of them, but it was these SEC quote unquote potential security tokens. All of them just plunged, you know, Cardano, Matic, Solana, you know, Cardonzo. All of them just plunged basically overnight. And but I mean, they took a bigger haircut than the rest of the altcoins, but they all bled pretty hard. So
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, what do you think about that? Like the fact that, so he wouldn't answer whether or not ETH was a security or commodity at that meeting. And again, the key thing about that statement last week, he didn't mention Ethereum as being a security, because he knows how much money is tied up in it. But he did mention all those other ones. And now, if you think about it, I was thinking about this the other day, you know, as the bull market comes back and we've got all this redundancy of, like, you know, Ethereum is the biggest layer one, and we've got this layer one, that layer one, all these layer two solutions, blah, blah, blah. As well as like DeFi products. Do you believe that? I mean, why would money? I don't know. Why would money flow into Solana now? Why would money? I mean, money will, because a bull market will bring everybody up. But where could like Solana even go now? Not that we're interested in holding it, but Matic, Cardonzo, all these other ones. Like, where could they go? You know, do they
pretty low? They won't die.
Just,
I don't think they die. I really don't. I think once things start to take off, you see them pick back up, especially if nothing's been done. But when somebody that, I hate to use the word prominent, but when somebody in that position starts to throw these names out there, people get afraid. They're afraid of delisting. They're afraid of, you know, them not being able to unload if something does happen. And they're like, well, I'm going to cut my losses now and sell and just kind of watch. Maybe they'll buy back in at a lower price. Maybe, you know, but yeah, I mean, something like that is definitely going to cause major FUD, especially coming from someone like that. So yeah, I mean, I could totally see some of these. Solana will make a comeback. I don't understand why the chain that can be flipped on and off at a whim. But Cardano has been a strong chain and a strong community with a strong founder.
Definitely.
There are other ones that will not die. I don't think Matic's going anywhere. But some of these other ones, they may not make it. It's just that's part of the cycle as well, is some of the ones that you thought would never go anywhere don't come back. So
Yeah, that's going to be the key is like, we've seen so many of these other coins in past 4-year cycles not return to their all-time highs or just kind of touch it or barely surpass it and go back down. And yeah, who knows? We could see that with some of those tokens. Yeah, absolutely. Good call, Cody Pauly. Yeah, that was a Jim Cramer signal to dump Cardonzo there for Hex, I think. So good stuff.
Cody has a good point here too.
Yeah.
Excuse me. I think it's another reason why we haven't seen Richard tweet. I think he's laying low.
You mean stream?
Or yes, tweet. Yeah, stream, not tweet. Sorry. But so, especially with the launch of PulseChain, we did talk about this off air as well. There's a lot of the validators that are coming offline very quickly that were originally set up, meaning it's more and more and more decentralized by the day. So every validator that comes offline of his original, not his, but the team's original group of 4,064 validators, the more of those that come offline, and the rest of the around the world, the 20,000 or so that are supporting the network, make it truly decentralized. So, there was one point that was made as these come out, originally, like I think you brought it up a little bit ago, said, they may be a security when they launch, but as time goes on, they're not anymore because of the decentralization factor. So, it's one of the things that I think Richard's he's so busy trying to stay one step ahead. He's always been so smart and good like that, where he does, it's like playing, they're playing checkers and he's playing 3D chess. So
yes. Yeah.
I don't see him streaming for a little bit, but so I want to answer this too. So when you say control, there's a difference between control and ownership.
Hey, could you just read the question out just in case people are listening on the back end on the podcast?
Yeah, sure. It says, is PulseChain truly decentralized if RH has so much control of it? When you say control, there's two different things. So there's decentralized ownership, which means everybody has the same amount in a nice little happy-go-lucky environment, which is never the case, because the good traders will always end up with the most of it, and the rec plebs will end up with none. So that doesn't work. If you look at the top however many 20, 30 coins and see how much centralized ownership there is, you would be quite surprised to see that almost every coin has a centralized ownership aspect of it. You've got Jeff Bezos owning the majority of Amazon. You've got Elon owning the majority of Tesla. Centralized control is a good thing for the right places. Zuckerberg owns the majority of Facebook. There's nothing wrong with that. It protects the price. Why would he wreck his own project? He's not going to. So that question is kind of like one of those concern troll questions that really, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, and they all do it. So you can't just single him out for owning the majority of PulseChain or owning the majority of Hex or whatever it may be. It just it's not enough. It's not a factor, I believe. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, not only that, but another thing to remember too, and we had this discussion before with Bitcoin maxis who shit on Hex or Richard Hart or PulseChain or anything else basically that isn't Bitcoin.
Right.
To remind them, like, Bitcoin was ultimately completely centralized at the beginning. Like, the more centralized something is at the beginning is the bigger opportunity that you have in the beginning. Yeah, you are taking risk. I mean, like, these things are all risky. Obviously, you may argue that these are the biggest risk. Well, okay, nobody can tell you to invest in something or how much to invest in something, but if you have done the research and you put in a dollar amount that is comfortable to you, just know that you could stand to gain a much higher reward with something being so centralized at the beginning like that. I mean, it's the way Bitcoin was. We have to remember that. So yeah, good stuff from Cody Pauly there. Yeah,
Rimrod said, "Not trolling. I'm in PulseChain," and I
had a feeling he was.
I didn't mean you were trolling. I said that comment is something that a concerned troll would say. I'm happy you're in PulseChain. I didn't mean it as I wasn't pinpointing you, but there are a lot of people that come into the chats and just say that, and it's one of those things that causes unnecessary concern when there really isn't need for it, as many coins do the same thing. As you said, Satoshi owned 1 million coins before anybody was really able to mine anything on their own. So
right,
it's slowly faded out to where as the as the increase and of tokens kind of came onto the market, that number was slowly dwindled down to where it was less of a percentage. So same thing will happen with HEX as the inflation rate goes up over time. Now, the weird thing with PulseChain is it is more deflationary because of the amount of tokens burned. As I just mentioned, all these validators that are coming offline, with each one of those original validators that come offline, there are 32 million pulse that were set in each one that are actually being burned. So just in the last day and a half or so, we've had 15 billion PulseChain burned. Do you remember what the statistic was from the start? I think it was on Pulse Burn, wasn't it?
Oh, the one I was reading to you earlier?
Yeah. How many were burned? 134 billion.
I know the dollar amount was 11 million PulseChain and 5 million pHEX.
Yeah. Pretty crazy.
Yeah. It is definitely crazy. Yeah.
I'm gonna share that real quick because it's 134 billion pulse have been burned and 154 billion pHEX have been burned. So pretty cool statistic.
Yeah, it's been working flawlessly so far. We understand people are upset at the price, but I mean, that's what's going to happen at the launch, which we're going to get into here in a moment. But just putting a bow tie or a bow, whatever the hell I'm trying to say, on the new SEC Stabilization Act. Yeah, it'll be interesting. More power to Davidson and Emmer. We'll hope you guys do get it done. And nobody wants Gary Gensler in there. We all see that it's one of those issues where like you're really doing a rare thing in life if everyone hates you. And, if you're Gensler, I think that's kind of the corner that he's painted himself into. I don't know why anybody would be a fan at this point. So we'll see where that goes. If you guys are here and enjoying the stream so far, we got a fire one tonight, actually. People hopping into the chat, which is always good. Hit the like. We very much appreciate it. Subscribe to the Creative Crypto channel. We do this every single Wednesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And now we're going to get into the DeFi stuff. Before we do that, I wanted to read another Broke Boys bookmark tweets here. This is from Khaleesi, who I think has a decent bit of followers. Probably she's a Hex person. He, she, I don't know. But Khaleesi, obviously a Game of Thrones character. Khaleesi at Khaleesi Hodls. I saw this tweet the other day. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I thought it was a good one. There's a reason why the majority of people in crypto capitulate and sell at deep lows and don't make it to see yet another bull run. And when it comes, all they have is anger, regret, and disappointment. That's because this shit is hard. It's psychological. People get ugly, bad words thrown around constantly, fear and doubt everywhere. So what are you to do? Just trust the projects you believe in and just ignore the noise for that long. Yes, that's exactly what you have to do. I know belief doesn't sound all that exciting, yet it truly is. It's truly one ingredient and aspect that you and I can master, seeing as I'm not an expert or a mega whale, so there's nothing I can do. You probably can't either, but I do have belief, though, and trust, and is that honestly enough? I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I really like the beginning of this anyway. Yeah, it is very hard. That's what people do not understand, and that's why I think crypto people who have made it get so pissed off at some of these people who are losers and don't make any, bets in life or anything.
Right.
Calling them like lucky or something like
Right.
that. My God. I mean,
I was
you're
just
here
going
through
to say the
this.
same thing. Yeah. I mean, they
Yeah.
throw that lucky word around after we've gone through dips and FUD and drama and just, it's hard, mentally hard. You have to have the mental fortitude to stick through it and have the conviction to believe in the things you do, especially when people are just throwing mud at it all the time, making you doubt your decisions. It really does. Even it doesn't matter how steadfast you are. Some of these things, when you just read them constantly, it does put doubt into your mind. Am I doing the right thing? Is this going to make it? Is it going to come back? And yeah, and people throw that word lucky around, and it pisses me off. I haven't been lucky. I've put hours and hours into education and watching videos and listening and learning, and yeah, it's not luck. And here we are trying to give some knowledge for free to people, and yeah, it does suck. So sorry, I kind of got on a rant there, but
No, I thought that. I mean, that's why I thought it was a great tweet, because it elicits that conversation. So, the only other one I wanted to read, just as kind of a market signal, I think right now. Now, this person is at Trading Lord, so keep that in mind. But on June 10th, evidently has a big following. I'm not sure how many, 59K or so. He or she says crypto is done. People keep acting like it's a normal cycle, but it is a complete failure. The market is over. It has been hyped for years with nothing new to show. Other interesting statement. Other assets create real value, and this one is just a bunch of failure. There won't be another cycle. So, in case anybody out there is doubting whether you should be trying to buy right now or not, there's a nice signal from you from Trading Lord. So there you go.
Yeah.
Anyway, so there is that. Now let's get to the fun stuff. So let's talk about this real quick. If there's any final thoughts you have on it. So this was mainly the drama that went down last week. Drama, whatever you want to call it. I think it's something interesting to consider. I saw Big Pep talk about it today. I really wasn't all that familiar with him. I know you were, obviously being a Hex OG, but man, that guy, I love his streams. Really cool dude. So go follow Big Pep. He has more subs than us, so I don't know if I really need to say that, but go check him out. But he was talking about this today, and we all experienced this last week. So I'm not trying to get into the pHEX, eHEX debate anymore. I think it's pretty much been settled that if everybody sells off eHEX, the whole ecosystem just tanks, obviously. But so this Hex God Whale sacrificing 800, let me get this right. Was it actually
800 million
hex? Yeah. To this BankX project, which is a silver-backed, not a gorilla, but a silver-backed stable coin. That largely seems to be from extremely shady characters. And I heard Matty Allen talk about this. He actually met them in Vegas. He talked about it at length. So this is not of my mouth. I don't know them. But if Matty Allen's going to go on and on about it and say that, I would trust him. But what do you make of this? Not talking really about like I mean, we don't give a shit about BankX, obviously, but it's a silver-backed stable coin that was built on PulseChain or something. And the Godwell we saw sent 800 million eHEX to that wallet. And now there's, or pegged. Yeah, I'm sorry, Briz. But yeah, so basically that, everybody's afraid they're going to dump it, obviously. So what do you think about this whole, because to me, and I agree with Big Pep, it just smells funny. I don't know why would Godwell get duped into sending sack money to these people? I think there's something more going on.
Yeah, I'm not sure either, unless he's a partial owner.
That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I think maybe this was more of a, I'm buying in, I'm going to kind of support you guys here. And whether there was a, backroom agreement that, he said, I'll do this, but you can't dump it all. Maybe there was, I don't know. I do know there was discussions of them reaching out to Richard Hart. They reached out to several people.
Yeah.
I believe there was a smart contract being built that would allow many people to buy the majority of it OTC. So, yes, there's a lot of concern. 800, but honestly, 800 million hex trying to hit the market at one time would send it to zero, but it would quickly recover. They wouldn't get much value for it, with the amount of slippage that they would have. I do believe they sold Brizology. Do you know? I think it was 30 million, 40 million maybe, which I think gave them, $100,000, couple $100,000 or something like that when they first got it, but then they stopped. So that's all that was sold at first. But yeah, something just didn't seem right. Just because the guy has made a couple good decisions doesn't make he's going to make all great decisions. I don't know enough about BankX to comment on them or who they are. But like you said, there are others that are saying that, they aren't really, they don't trust them. So
Yeah.
I can't say that myself. Again, I don't know them. I don't know who they are, or haven't followed them. But yeah, I feel like there was more to it. Maybe he knew them. Maybe there has to be more to the story than him just dumping such a big bag. Now, he did have several billion hex. So for him, 800 million for a potential investor ground level, if he believes in this thing, maybe he's a silver bug from way back. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's hard to say. He is, we don't know much about him. So yeah, something's not right with it, but
Yeah.
hopefully it doesn't sell. If it does, I hope they dump it all at once, goes to zero, recovers quickly, and we move on. But I hope they do it now rather than, at the height of the bull market.
Well, it's definitely curious, and like I can't figure out what they're trying to do because you shared with me. We both saw it. I think everybody saw it. But that account, that BankX account, tweeted at Richard talking about strategies for it and that they don't want to hurt the coin that we all love and all this stuff. And it's like, do you really think he's going to negotiate or talk to you about this in any way? And
It's like,
what do they even mean by that? I mean, I don't even understand what they. So, in other words, you are going to dump it? What are you
right,
talking about here?
right. Yeah, it sounded like that was their intention, and they wanted to, it's like we don't deal with terror, or we don't negotiate with terrorists. So, kind of the same thing. If they want to dump it, I would rather see them do it now. Briz seems to think it was more closer to 100,000. I thought it was like 80 grand. I thought maybe they were just using it to pay some people or some developers or do whatever. But about 10 million coins were already sold, and that means they still have 790 million to go.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where the saga goes. I mean, I do think it is something that has been, I mean, I know it is because I've heard people say it, looming over some people's heads as investors in this PulseChain ecosystem that are afraid of like the eHEX price just blowing up one day because of this sell. I think there's different strategies there can, out there to avoid that. But I'll be honest with you, this just smells like another one of those, narratives people are going to obsess over and, be scared away from eHEX and things like that. And we're still going to see it just recover rather nicely as we get bullish again. Hey, it's a hellhole right now. I mean, like it's below, 0.7 of a penny. I mean, that's just what it is. Didn't think we'd ever see these prices again. But is that even true? I mean, back in December of 2022, there were people like, oh, maybe a penny, maybe down to a half penny. Now here we are 6 months later after the launch of PulseChain over there. So,
yeah.
Yeah,
and after a split too, not to mention,
yeah,
if it were just one and we went that far, it would be rough. But because of the stock split, so to speak, with the two chains, it makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. And all that economic energy split over all this whole ecosystem. I mean, Hex would, I think, be comfortably over 3 cents right now if we did not have a PulseChain launch. I think that's just where we'd be. But yeah, so that's where we are. We all pretty much figured that eHEX would be the thing people would sell off to get into this. So this just brings all that perspective in. There's so many things that have to happen over the next 2 years. Not have to happen, but that are going to happen with retail and people getting back into this market. Like, people don't even know about PulseChain yet. Oh, there's traders out there that aren't aware of this market and are looking at all the new shiny new toys. That's PulseChain is going to be that as people come back to this market. So, people are going to realize it, and a lot of that money is going to flow back into Hex, like it or not. Really, that's just where the ecosystem is going to go. So, let's talk about like the main topic here that I have on the thumbnail. So, we're seeing them right now, so we really timed this perfectly. But has the PulseChain ecosystem bottomed? I mean, we're pretty much sitting here at the lowest prices that we have seen that were post ratio trading anyway. I mean, there was a time where pHEX was almost 1 to 10 or something and down 92%. That was like literally day one stuff. But now that the bridge is open, there's liquidity, people are doing things. This is really the lowest that we've been. We are now at, this would be, man, we're almost right where Hex bottomed right now. Hex bottomed on day 33. PulseChain launched on May the 12th. So we are at 7, 14, 21, 28. And third day 33 right now. So here we are. Is this it? Where we are right now with PulseChain sitting, we already said it earlier, but about 20% below the SAC rate. pHEX about 69% below the SAC rate, and both hexes just around half to a penny. Is this eHEX, or do you think we could still have more bottom to come? And how would you compare this in terms of price action and stuff to the Hex launch so far?
So Ethereum didn't bottom until day 74, I believe. So I still think there could be a little bit more to come. I don't think we've bottomed out. We're probably getting close. But in my opinion, I think we have a little bit more to go. But when you say we're down 20% from the sacrifice rate, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Coffee made a pretty good post and mentioned that the coins that we sacrificed for that price were 15x higher than where we're at now. So is it really 20%? I think people are still in profit, actually, because of the extra value that they were able to get, by being 15x higher than what the coins are worth now. So you got to figure that in too. That's another 1,500%. 15x. So I don't know. I think there's a little bit more pain to go. I don't think we've seen it all yet. Like I said, I think getting some dry powder, trying to get some dry powder ready. Even so, if we do have a bottom, no one ever complained about buying day 38 in Hex rather than day 33. So these are all very attractive prices. Some of the bottoms that we may never see again. So you're not going to complain about getting in on the bottom or the day of the bottom. But as long as you're in that area somewhere, you're going to be fine down the road.
Yeah. It's such a cliche, but it is because it is true. It just, when in doubt, zoom out, and you look at those beginning Hex days, even to now, like at the price that we're at right now, forget about 53 cents or whatever, just to where we are now. And the fact that this opportunity is here right now, a month after Pulse is released, and they're both below the, dollar value, or I should say, like at least what they theoretically the SAC rate would be of 0001. So it's out there, and there's still a chance to do it. We still don't have all these big influencer YouTube channels talking about it. People are still leading people into, the arbitrums, the optimisms, and stuff like that are the Aptos, like Pepe. Yeah, I guess I mean, even the influencers are talking about Pepe. So you name it. I mean, like whatever it is, whether it's, big time VC suit scam or meme coin scam, they will all talk about it unless it's a Richard Hart product. That's the one thing that we have found out. So,
hey, speaking of scam, I wanted to bring this up. If you guys happen to be on Twitter, I know I'm on it a lot. If you get tagged in some sort of airdrop, it's a scam. Please don't click the link. I think the best thing that I've done is to, first of all, when you see that tweet, leave the conversation And then check out who it is that tweeted you. If they've got under 20 followers, just block them, so they can't do it again. The less people that see these things, the less people that are going to get affected by them. But please don't click the links. That's how you end up with a compromised wallet. You're approving transactions for an airdrop that isn't real. Then they have access to your funds. So please just be careful. And any of those airdrops, or send me one, I'll send you two. Those kind of things are going to start coming back. I know they already are. I've seen a ton of HEX airdrops and PulseChain airdrops, and they're not legitimate. So please just be careful. Spread the word to your onboards that they cannot be clicking those links or following those people or whatever. Just leave the conversation and then block the person that's tagging you on it, and it'll make the world a better place.
Yeah, I would say that I get one every 2 days or so at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, I am starting to see PulseChain ones, so none of it is ever anything you want to concern yourself with. So yeah, I just hit the block button immediately every single time that comes up. So
Well, if you
good
leave the
stuff.
conversation, they won't be able to tag you in it again. So
Oh, okay.
just
Well,
that's
that's
an
good to know too.
extra step, but just that's what I
Yeah.
do.
Well, that's good to know too. But yeah, I mean, the opportunities we are going to see here at these prices, I think, going forward, and I am with you, Ewok. If I were to make a call anyway, I think we'll probably see a little bit more downside. I don't think a ton, but either way, it's an opportunity that, as much as you want to feel like you want to rush in and everything, I think we've got a good 3 to 6 months to accumulate this stuff. Like you said, the Hex buying on day 38 versus 33, nobody's that angry at that point. So
Right.
I think we've got another 3 to 6 months. I think we'll be in a much better spot in 6 months, but to accumulate it at good prices when you look back at the end of 2025. So
Yeah, and it only takes one big buy for that candle to go up and not ever come down. People will go in, they'll make one large purchase, and then they'll place liquidity right there so that it kind of protects that price. They don't want it to go lower or someone using them as exit liquidity. So a lot of times that's how it happens. And in Hex, it was the God whale that made that first giant candle, that bought it all up and then threw liquidity in and protected the price, and it never went back below there.
yeah. Do you want to answer this question from Deliana real quick? I am not providing, I'm not in any liquidity pools or farming on PulseX, but I know Ewok has done a little bit of stuff. So if you want to, do you see what I'm
Yes.
talking about there? Okay.
Yeah, the answer is yes. I am doing both. There doesn't make sense to provide liquidity and not stake it, especially if you're in one of those pools. Now, I don't know what the incentive token is going to do, but everyone likes the free money, and especially if you're putting your risk and your capital out there, it definitely helps. I can see the incentive token doing very well. I saw someone the other day posting that they thought it could be worth $1,000 in the bull market, and I thought that was quite generous. But depending on how liquidity bonded these things are, if things go up and do a 100x, and it stays with it, follows suit, well, 10 times 100 is 1,000. So we'll see what happens. But yes, to answer your question, I am.
Good stuff. All right. So I want to talk about this. This is I think actually the most interesting conversation we'll have tonight. So, not doing the whole eHEX, pHEX debate thing, just kind of observing what has been happening in terms of actual hex mining rewards, on minted hex basically over the next few years. So we have started to see the divergence, and this is what people have been talking about, and I think we're starting to see it play out, where we've heard about hex on Ethereum becoming the kind of whale chain, or where the staking, minting, whatever you want to call it, will be taking place, whereas PulseChain might be the more, and a lot of people have spoken to this, but like new onboarding, cheaper fees, stuff like that for now. I mean, and I think PulseChain will continue to have cheaper fees. I'm just saying the ETH fees may not be untenable forever anyway. But taking a look, and I'm going to reference, actually, let me put this in the chat. And actually, if you want to grab it, you can, Ewok. But from Crispy Man the other day, very good tweet. You keep what you have up too. But yeah, basically just showing that for hex miners, we've begun to see the divergence of rewards between chains. Ethereum gaining over PulseChain. Expect to see this widen over time? Question mark. So yeah, let's look at what you've got up there, Ewok, and we are already seeing the ETH hex T-share payout better than the PulseChain one. So
Yeah, it's starting to separate. Well, so when you look here at the here, let me go to the right page so you can see my mouse. When you look here at the payout per T-share,
yeah.
Well, it actually just updated here a little bit ago. What was different before?
Went down a little bit, it looks like.
Yeah. So you've got payout per T-share 6.524 on Ethereum, and that is hex per T-share. PulseChain is right at 6.5. So it's only been a month, 30 days or so. So, just to see the disparity though in 30 days, how the Ethereum is pulling away, that means, obviously the pool in Ethereum is a little bit smaller than you've got people moving to PulseChain. And I really think, as I've said before, it's going to be somewhat of a self-balancing system. People are always going to go where the money treats them better. And if you have a better deal for the same amount, it does take a little bit more. So T-share rate is 27,762 hex to get a T-share, whereas over here on PulseChain, it's only 27,748. So while the payout per T-share is higher, the T-share rate to get a T-share is a little bit lower.
Yeah.
So it's funny how that works out, and how it will probably always, I think, stay as a self-balancing system. If one gets out of whack too much, there's going to be people that kind of lean over to that one. And then, the other one may catch up. You're going to have premiums and discounts all the time. And I think they're just going to, I think they're just going to go, and they're going to cross, and they'll cross, and then they'll cross again. And it's just going to be one of those systems that are very reflexive to what's going on. Not to mention arbitrage bots and things like that, trying to keep them close. Now, arbitrage bots won't work with the staking system, but it will work with the price. So,
right.
That'll be the first thing that stays. And then, we'll see if the Ethereum folks do anything to fix their gas costs. That's always a possibility too. I don't see, especially if PulseChain starts to really pull some market share from them, they're probably going to be in a hurry to get things fixed and get some of those users back. So
yeah, go ahead and if you want to pull up we'll get to it in a minute here. But yeah, I am with you. And yeah, that number was a little bit different earlier. We were at almost 7 actually hex per T-share a little bit earlier when we were looking at it. So which is a good number for where we've been.
yeah.
But I could see that happen. And it's going to be interesting to track because, that kind of shows the behavior on each one of the chains other than just the price. I mean, everybody's talking about the price right now and PulseChain hex being higher than eHEX and things like that. But I think it's going to be interesting to see. I'm telling you, I know people don't understand this, but just like when we see retail come back into this market, not only are we going to see that eHEX price rise and I think get back to parity with PulseHEX, like, and like you said, I think they'll oscillate and go back and forth. But I think we'll also see people getting back, and we've talked about this before too, the last couple of weeks, to the behavior of actually mining and minting out hex, time locking hex for however many years they want to. It doesn't matter if you don't have to be a 5555 boy or anything, but for a few years, I think people will. Right now, everybody's afraid of everything. So they're not going to do anything. They're not going to lock up tokens. They're not going to buy eHEX, just like Heavy Wing is talking about here in the chat, thinking that we need to take the BankX thing more seriously. I mean, I don't think you or I just mocked it or didn't take it seriously. We'll get to what he said in a minute here. But as people come back into this market, I think we're going to see that they're going to be more interested in time locking stuff like that for a longer period of time. Everything's dead right now. Everybody's terrified of everything, so they're going to act like it,
Yeah. And
so
this comment, could cause an extra FUD too. It may be nothing. Like I said, I know there was a contract being built to buy the majority of this OTC, which would handle it, and then we wouldn't have to worry about it at all. So, while this is concerning right now, again, I would rather they dump the shit out of it right now, send it to zero. We're only at a penny. We could get back there pretty quickly, and then they're washed out. I'm perfectly fine with that. My concern is, it starts to make a rise, and then it gets dumped, and then you've got one that's considerably higher than the other. Yes, you can't ignore it. I do agree with you. You can't ignore it.
And we weren't,
but
that's the other
no,
thing.
We weren't ignoring it at all.
Yeah.
But there are solutions that are being worked on to address this. So, I think that I'm not concerned about it at this point. It does worry me down the road if we think these people, again, I don't know these guys, so I can't speak on the BankX guys, but so
I like silver, but I mean, not that this is a direct comparison at all. I don't mean it this way, but do you know how long we've had people crying about like Mt. Gox when it comes to Bitcoin? Wait until the Mt. Gox dump. When that happens, the final flush out's coming. Okay, well, that's bullshit because it still hasn't happened. Who knows when it's going to happen? If it's like some annuity and they don't all get the tokens or the coins at one time, I don't think we're ever going to see a day where like we are like, that's it. That was the Mt. Gox dip. It's just not going to happen. So I'm not going to behave like this 800 million hex. I'm going to sit here and change my behavior, because that may or may not happen down the road.
Right.
I agree with you. We shouldn't ignore it. And we did a whole segment on it. We're not ignoring it, but I'm not going to have it dictate my every move in the market.
No. And he said he's just making for good conversation, nothing personal. And
I hear it.
We appreciate that. No, I mean, yeah. Is it worrisome? Yeah, a little bit. Are we going to fix it? With this community, I see it being resolved pretty quickly. You'd be surprised what this community is capable of. If you've been around a long time, then if you haven't, then just watch. So it should be interesting.
Yeah, I'm certainly not going to walk around operating with it like hanging over my head or anything like that. We will see. But Clifton Lewis, glad you can make it as well, man. I saw you were on the Big Pep stream the other day, so shout out to you, man. But I think that pretty much wraps us up. This was a great show. We got to a lot of good stuff tonight. It was nice finally for the non-DeFi, non-PulseChain stuff to actually be interesting with the SEC and everything that's going on there. Any kind of final thoughts, Ewok, as we head into the second half of June and kind of continuing throughout this summer here?
Just a shout out to the Pulse Burn guys, man. I don't know if you've seen, I'm going to actually share their website right now, but they've done a ton of work and, can you see it? Yeah.
Yes. Yep.
So they have a bunch of drop downs now where you can do all kind of stuff. So there's all statistics, for the block explorer, the validators, the bridge, PulseX stats, gas, and then there's apps. And if you go down here to Hex, there's a new Hex front end that looks a lot like go.hex.com, and apparently they have fixed the issue with it understanding which network it was on
for staking. Yeah,
well, for anything. I did notice the other day that my fix did not actually fix everything. I was able to fix it, but it wasn't reading the amounts because the wallet amounts of mine are different on PulseChain and Ethereum. And while it was changing the stakes and everything like that, it wasn't reading the new amount of hex that I had in my wallet. It was still from the Ethereum. So it was strange. But yeah, these guys are doing amazing work, putting stuff out. You can buy Pulse directly from their on ramp. I don't think they have an off ramp yet, but I just wanted to give them a nice little shout out because they're really making things happen and adding things. You can figure out your accrued incentive tokens if you want. Just put your address in and it'll tell you how much you've earned. Just lots of neat stuff. So shout out to them.
Yeah, they're definitely doing an awesome job. I think Richard has actually mentioned them or retweeted their stuff multiple times. Yeah, it's very awesome. And, more front ends, more easier ways for people, ways for people to get onboarded through different ramps and things like that, front ends, which is always awesome when you want to make DeFi easier to the layman, So,
Right.
Good stuff. So this was a great show tonight. I hope you guys enjoyed. Let me see if we have any final questions. I know people like to pop in and do that here at the end.
Yeah, Andrew asked about the fear and greed index.
I don't really read that, honestly. I think it's easy to misinterpret, but I'm sure it's probably pointing somewhere to the left. I don't know.
Well, it says extreme greed, which I don't know that I believe that.
Well, that's why I don't read it. So, yeah, I don't really understand what that means, but we appreciate all you guys. Yeah, we'll go ahead. I don't see that. That's not the one I usually reference. What you have up is not the one I've seen before. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Andrew, just Google it. We don't care. Nah, honestly though. I honestly do think it's harmful. I don't think it's not anything that I like to make decisions based off of.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
I don't know if that was the Bitcoin fear and greed index that you were looking at, or
that was not. I think it was the general sentiment. So this,
yeah, here it is. I see it. 41.
Yeah,
yeah, just fear. That's about what I would have guessed. Yeah, yeah. So it's a tough one. I mean, I think the only time it's really useful is like when we had the FTX debacle and stuff, and it was just breaking off the end of the red section. I think that's
right.
That's kind of when it's useful, to when it's like, oh shit, like this is the bottom and I'm terrified. I think that's when it's maybe a little bit more useful, but it's a tough one. Yeah.
It's dropping too. So it's getting more toward fear. Last week it was at 50, yesterday 46, today 41. So it's continuing to, go down. So we'll see.
Yeah. I'll be honest with you. Scrolling Twitter for like 20 minutes helps me more with sentiment than that. It really does. I'm not even kidding. I think it's pretty valuable. It's a good tool, even though
to add to your fear, you mean?
No, just to gauge it. I mean, if it adds to your fear, then even more.
Then stay away from it. Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think we're good. Hey, we appreciate all you guys. We saw all the comments. Very much appreciate all of you. Hit the like before you get out of here. We are here every single Wednesday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We'll have another show for you the 21st of June next week. So for my friend and co-host Crypto Ewok, I don't have the right monitor on. This is Boi Crypto. We'll see you next week right here on the Creed of Crypto podcast.